Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be looking at Jordyn Tyson, probable rookie prospect out of Arizona State. So he's a redshirt junior, and we're going to be taking a look at his profile, usage, box scores, advanced stats, some all-22 film while I talk about his strengths and weaknesses, and really areas that I think he should be able to improve upon. And then finally, take a look at where he's potentially going to be drafted in real life in terms of overall draft capital and potential team fit. And finally, what we might be able to expect from him in fantasy. And so watch to the end of this video, and you should have a pretty good idea. Now, taking a look at what PFF and NFL Draft Buzz have for his height and weight, they both list him at 6'2", 200 pounds. And so being 6'2" would be 67th percentile for wide receivers. He's above average there. But being 200 pounds on the dot would be 46th percentile, so a little bit lanky. But nothing I would be concerned about at all. No worries there. Now, for his projected 40 time, they list him at 4.50 on NFL Draft Buzz. That in and of itself would be 51st percentile. Now, I'm not somebody really that cares too much about 40 times. I think the All-22 can tell you, does this guy separate vertically? Does he get caught from behind significantly? Is this really going to be a limiting factor for him? Being able to run in underwear in a straight line doesn't really mean as much, once again, as the All-22 tape, which I'll be showing you a little bit later in this video. Now, taking a look at his production profile, this is going to be one of those instances where taking a look at raw counting stats as a whole is not going to be indicative of how talented he actually is. So, in his true freshman season at Colorado, he had 48 targets, 23 receptions, 466 yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns on 20.3 yards per catch. Now, that is a perfectly fine true freshman season. There is there's no issue there. But at the end, he suffered an ACL, MCL, and PCL injury, causing him to miss his freshman season's couple final of games and spring ball at ASU, where he transferred the next season. In 2023, he only ended up with 4 targets, no receptions, no yards, no touchdowns. But last year in 2024, he had 113 targets, 75 receptions, 1,098 receiving yards, and 10 receiving touchdowns to go along with an 83.3 PFF receiving grade. But he did sustain a collarbone injury, so the second significant injury in his collegiate career up to that point. Then came back this season, did have a hamstring injury that caused him to miss multiple games, although he did play through it. And so on the season, he had 97 targets, 61 receptions, 711 receiving yards, and 8 receiving touchdowns, along with a career-high PFF receiving grade of 85.9. And so while the overall counting stats might not be quite as impressive, and this isn't the profile of the consistently ascending wide receiver from a production standpoint year over year, there's a lot of context that is important here, because if you just took a look at the raw stats, you wouldn't be as impressed as you would be if you understood this context and if you've seen him play. Now, we're going to take a look at some box score stats. We're not just going to be purely box score watching. Why I want to show this to you is how he plays against ranked competition, right? So also remember, he did miss time with the hamstring injury, so some of his production towards the tail end is him playing through injury here. But if we take a look against number 24 ranked TCU, he went 8 for 126 and 2 touchdowns. And then against number 7 Texas Tech, went 10 for 105 and 1. Now, against number 25 Arizona, he's playing through injury, 2 for 22 and no touchdown. I'm not really going to hold these last couple of games against him, because he's just trying to give it his all and go out for his team and help them win, right? But throughout his collegiate career, if you take a look at his box scores throughout the years against ranked competition, he consistently steps up to the plate, and that is a very positive indication that he is going to be able to succeed against better players, because he's not just purely beating up on inferior competition. And so that's yet another thing that I really like about his profile. Now, taking a look at some advanced stats here, I took a look at FBS wide receivers with 50 or more targets. That was a sample size of over 200 players. Tyson ran 300 total routes on the season, which is 92.6% of the team routes. He is a starting wide receiver getting consistent usage. Now, taking a look at his deployment, he's played 25% of the time in the slot and 74.7% out wide. So he's not the profile of the boundary-only wide receiver, which is good. Now, he can play all 3 positions, X, Z, or slot, with ease. He has absolute positional versatility, and he can even be used in the backfield at times, which you'll see on some of these all-22 clips I'm going to show you in a little bit. Now, some of these advanced stats, I'll be frank with you, are just not overly impressive. Taking a look at his yards per out run, his 2.37 are tied for 59th in the sample size. Not bad by any means, but not particularly dominant. I think the PFF receiving grade, which I like to include these in the videos as a reference point and a data point in general, but I'm not one of these people that just looks at their grades and just takes it as fact, really. But I do think that his PFF receiving grade of 85.9 is fair. And I do think that it's fair to say he's one of the better wide receivers. They have him ranked as the 7th on the season. Now, taking a look at his yak per reception and missed tackles forced, his 4.30 yards after catch is tied for 174th, and his missed tackles forced of 6 is tied for 145th. Now, he did miss a little bit of time, and one thing I want to mention is he is better after the catch than that, and you'll see that once again on the All-22. Taking a look at his contested catch percentage, this is not particularly great. He has 43.8% on the season, 7 out of 16 targets, but I don't think that he does make some very tough catches at the catch point. So I do think that while he's not necessarily dominant in contested catch situations, that is something that I think he could improve upon. I don't think he's really bad there either. So I think that's potentially just a little bit of variance, if I'm being honest with you. Taking a look at his targets and targets per game, he has 97 on the season, which is 10.8 per game. That is true wide receiver 1 territory at the collegiate level. He's turned the 97 targets into 61 receptions at 6.8 a game. That's a solid number as well. Now, he only has 711 receiving yards at 79.0 per game. Once again, I think that's being slightly influenced by playing through injury at the end of the season. But at the same time, it's just not a truly dominant number either, to be fair. But he does have 8 touchdowns, which is 0.9 per game because he's played 9 total games here. And so I'm just going to mention this now. I think he is a much better wide receiver than some of these advanced and counting stats are going to show. And I think the All-22 film is going to help demonstrate this. And I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon members. Thank you to Big Hunt, SP, Mage Jack, Infamy MTG, AOYOB, The Don, and Any Buckeye. Thank you guys. I'm doing this full time now, and without your support, this would not be possible. If you'd like to become a member, I'm going to leave a link in both the comment section and description of this video. You'll receive not only, but including access to a Discord where we have a channel where we have NFL and college football talk, as well as a channel where we have fantasy football talk, and a third channel where we laugh at poor trade offers that we've been offered in fantasy football. But if you'd like to, you can always DM me with private, questions if you don't wish for it to be known by any community members. But you'll also get help with building your fantasy football teams every year. I'll use wins above replacement, as well as just looking at the general lineup and scoring settings to help you with your teams each year. I'll help you with trades that are advantageous based on those factors as well. You'll be part of a fun and growing active community. You'll not only receive access to videos early guaranteed, but you'll also have the ability to ask for personal videos that you and only you can view. Or potentially, if you'd like something to be shown on the channel, you'll have preferential treatment there as well. So please consider becoming a member. I'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video. And while I let some All-22 clips display some of what I'm going to be mentioning here, I'm going to read you a brief 3-minute synopsis of Jordyn Tyson in which I've written. So Jordyn Tyson is a redshirt junior out of Arizona State who projects to have absolute positional versatility as an X, Z, or slot at the NFL level, and projects to be a candidate to be a team's wide receiver 1 at the next level as well. His usage at Arizona State was a mixture of being an X, Z, and slot, with a 25% slot usage and 74.7% boundary usage this season, but he also played some reps in the backfield, and I think that is going to be something he can continue to do at the NFL level, and is just another way for teams to scheme him open on offense. I think he can and will dominate from every wide receiver position at the NFL level, and will establish himself early on as a productive rookie. Assuming he doesn't go to a team with multiple established star wide receivers already there, such as, the Bengals, if they were to take him for some reason. So he's around 6'2" and 200 pounds, and possesses a lot of skills that should translate at the NFL level immediately. His route running is an absolute work of art, and his combination of attacking leverage and lateral agility allow him to make opposing cornerbacks look foolish trying to keep up with him. He creates quick separation with ease against man coverage relatively consistently, and has a good understanding of beating zone as well, but at times does use wasted movement in an attempt to sell routes against man, where I think he could win with more by-the-book precision. But I've seen so many successful reps without wasted movement that I don't think this will be a continuing issue with him, and I think with NFL coaching it'll eventually be a non-issue as he looks to eradicate that. He runs a particularly nasty fade route from both the slot and outside, which should make him a good option in the red zone if he ends up with a QB that can throw them with any semblance of accuracy. He does need to work on defeating press man, which I think is more so due to hand placement technique and striking first rather than just overall play strength, because he does break tackles with relative ease. And I don't think it's such a weakness that he can't or won't improve at the NFL level. So I think he'll be fine there with some good coaching once again. He almost always stepped up when playing ranked competition, and that's a valuable part of a prospect profile. He's had quite a few injuries and has missed a lot of time during his collegiate career, but I think this is going to be a Puka Nacua type of deal where he's just so talented that you will regret passing on him because of being risk adverse during drafts, especially in Dynasty. He is much better after the catch than the stats show, and the yak ability is a key trait that I look for with wide receiver prospects. Can you turn a 10-yard route into, a 20-yard route, right? I want somebody that can maximize the work in which they've been given, not just turn 20 yards into 20 yards. He can break tackles with physicality and make people miss with sudden moves in the open field with ease, as you've seen on this All-22. He also makes acrobatic plays in the air with a fantastic vertical jump that he pairs with his ball tracking ability to make routine highlight grabs. While he doesn't have true burner speed, his acceleration is pretty nice, and he is fast enough that his overall speed won't be a deterrent for an NFL team feeling comfortable lining him up anywhere on the field. And he should end up being a highly coveted prospect who should have a very high ceiling at the NFL level, and you just got to hope he stays healthy enough. Now let's talk about his projected draft capital from an IRL perspective, as well as a brief summarization once again of his strengths and areas to potentially improve upon. So he's projected per NFL Draft Buzz to be a mid-first round draft pick. I think that could definitely go up. I think he's extremely talented. And in my opinion, I think he could go early first, depending if a team really likes him a lot. And I'd be pretty shocked if he fell out of the first round. Once again, a brief summarization of his strengths. He attacks leverage consistently. That is something that I really liked about Malik Neighbors coming out, is he is a missile seeking the cornerback to try to get him on his back foot, to help him break left or right, depending on what route he's running. His strength is his route running. That's probably his biggest strength, in my opinion, although he has plenty. He's really sudden, and he has good lateral agility, which kind of goes hand in hand with his route running to be able to confuse cornerbacks and make them look silly pretty consistently. But he also combines that with excellent body control and ball tracking ability. You'll see it on once again, if you took a look at some of those slot fades in particular, the ball tracking through the air, contorting his body to come down with the tough catches, it's really impressive. And I just really like his positional versatility. He can be used outside as an X, while I do think he needs to improve his play strength against press coverage and his hand technique, and really look to attack the cornerback with physicality to be able to beat press man. I don't think it's so bad right now that he couldn't be relatively fine. And I do think that once again, with NFL coaching, that's going to improve. But I also think he can be used at Z off the line of scrimmage or in the slot too. Absolute positional versatility. So he's not going to be locked into a role based on this profile. And that's something I really value. And having the positional versatility to play anywhere on the field is one of those traits that helps make you a potential wide receiver one for an NFL team. Now, areas to improve. Now, injury history, you can't really improve there, but that's just something I want to note, is he has dealt with consistent injuries, although they're not the same injuries. So while it's not ideal to have multiple injuries, if it was, a recurring right knee issue, I would be much more worried than, a collarbone injury and one single multi-ligament knee injury. But they are red flags for the profile, so that is a fair point. Once again, I mentioned the press coverage, but he also has a little bit of wasted movement in his routes. I think he could be more efficient with them, and he's already successful as it is. I think he could be even more successful, because if you're not perfect with your route running against some of the top tier corners, and even if you are at times, you aren't going to get consistent separation for your quarterback, because the guys at the NFL level are obviously all of the best guys from college, all in one tiny little sample size here. So he does have some areas to potentially improve, but I think his strengths are going to allow him to be very good out the gate. And I do think he has the potential to be a true number one wide receiver for an NFL team. Now, we're going to talk about my pro comparisons for him. where I think the Dynasty community will probably have him ranked, where I would probably have him ranked without really knowing the landing spot and situation, as well as a couple of possible fits kind of at various points in the first round where I think could possibly be realistic options for him. So my pro comparison for him is a mixture of Stephon Diggs and Jerry Jeudy. And so with Stephon Diggs, you have that true positional versatility. You're electric after the catch. You're very good at route running, but especially at creating quick separation and being a go-to guy all across the field for an NFL team. He reminds me a lot of Stephon Diggs, but he also combines a lot of the route running nuance and the attacking of leverage that Jerry Jeudy had coming out. And so, I mean, both of these comps to be absolute compliments to him because I'm personally very high on Jordyn Tyson. As far as what I think the projected community dynasty ranking for him will be, I think he'll be somewhere in the wide receiver 11 to 20 range, which I think is relatively fair if, he doesn't go to a spot where there's two established star receivers like, since Cincinnati or something ahead of him, or goes to a place where the quarterback play is just so abysmal that they can't even get him the football because no wide receiver is truly quarterback proof. I mean, we've seen that with Justin Jefferson. If you can manage to erase Justin Jefferson out of the game, I really don't think anybody's absolutely safe. Now, as far as where I'll probably have him ranked, now this has some room to potentially go up or down depending on the landing spot, but I think I'd have him somewhere in between Rome Odunze as wide receiver 16 on KTC and Marvin Harrison Jr. as wide receiver 17 on KTC. I think this guy has sky-high potential, and it would not shock me if we get a Stephon Diggs type of career out of this guy, assuming he stays healthy. Now, a couple of possible fits. It's a little bit tough because he could go anywhere in the first round, in my opinion, depending on how much a team likes him, how he performs in interviews and at the combine. But I think the Commanders at 6th would be a good spot. You could combine him with Jayden Daniels' accuracy down the field and ability to work with Jayden Daniels in scramble drill. I think that will be a strength for him. And that's one of the earlier spots I could possibly see him going. I know they have Debo and Terry McLaurin. I think if you add Jordyn Tyson in there, that will really open up things for the offense. I think the Dolphins at 12th, I think, they can have Jalen Waddle on the outside. They can move Jordyn Tyson around. I think combine that with Tua's anticipation and general accuracy over the middle of the field would be a very good fit. I think the Steelers at 19th, potentially if he slips a little bit in the draft, I think, opposite of DK Metcalf, like I think with a lot of these receivers, would be really good for him. The quarterback play could potentially be a question, so it wouldn't be necessarily an ideal spot, but I think from an IRL perspective, that could be a potential landing spot for him. And the Steelers have a very good record with successful draft picks at wide receiver, with a couple misses here and there, but generally pretty good. And finally, the Bills at 25th, I think that would be a match made in heaven with Josh Allen. I think you would have your Stephon Diggs to go with Josh Allen, and they are looking for a potential X wide receiver, and I think that Jordyn Tyson could be that guy. I think out of the three receivers, I've broken, two other receivers. I think that Tyson has the best deep speed, and I think he's the best option to be an X at the NFL level out of the three, although I think that Carnell Tate can probably succeed there as well. But I think that with Josh Allen, I think you would get a Stephon Diggs type of production from Jordyn Tyson. All right, so where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Let me know below in the comment section. Is this guy your wide receiver 1, wide receiver 3, potentially lower? Let me know below in the comment section. I personally think that he'll probably end up being my wide receiver 1, although admittedly I haven't gone through the production profiles with a little bit of context and the all-22 clips of a lot of these other wide receivers, which I will be doing. But I do think he's probably going to end up being my wide receiver 1, but things could definitely change. If you'd be so inclined, I would really appreciate your support via Patreon. Once again, thank you to my Patreon members. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible, and I am doing this full time now. If you do not wish to or cannot support me via Patreon, if you could just like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, I would really appreciate it. Thanks, guys, and have a good day.